So where are you? It looks very nice where you are.
Oh, not too far, in Saint-Agathe-des-Monts.
Okay.
So like, yeah, like about an hour away from home.
Where's home for you?
Home is Rosemont.
How about you, Sam? Where are you?
I live in Montreal too. I'm Beauvien, Saint Laurent, just in Little Italy kind of area. Yeah. Right.
So the first question I want to ask you is, do we pronounce it FHANG? Just ignore the H. Is that right?
We don't know yet.
We don't really know. Yeah.
We're waiting for
kind of like, we kind of made jokes about that. We're like, yeah, nobody, I'm like, how do we even pronounce this band name? We're like FHANG, 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 like
FHANG.
FHANG. Most people are just saying FHANG, but that is funny because when we first we're like, oh yeah, everyone will like say it differently.
But it's easy to find on Google, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking at your music videos and I noticed one of the comments said, and I quote, odd, enjoyable, but odd. Do you think that's a pretty good description of your music?
I think so. I mean, yeah, it's that's so funny. That was the first YouTube comment we ever got. And I was like, oh yeah, that's like, because we specifically put that song out first. Because we were like, oh, if we put this one out, like, it will like leave people questioning, like, oh, that was like pretty weird, like a pretty weird first song. Like, I'm gonna have to follow up and see what the next song is to like figure out if I'm into this band or not.
Right. That's a good theory, I think. So when you decided you were going to start making music together, what was in your head about what you wanted to create? Because your music is very diverse from what I've heard so far.
Nice.
I mean, I don't think we had a plan per se. The project wasn't born until there was already a few ideas on the board. Like, I think we were just communicating a lot at that time, and this was like literally the project started because of the pandemic, I'd say. Like I came home from tour and just needed something else to do whilst going through all this craziness and crazy mess and adapting. But so this was, like personally, I was just at home learning a DAW, learning Ableton and laying down some ideas. And I think knowing very well that I love Sam's production, and I think we were just for whatever reason, I think we were communicating a lot at that point, and I think we just started sending ideas back and forth, so we didn't really we didn't call it a band until we kind of made, until we kind of said to ourselves, like, okay, like now we have all this music that we've all worked on, so I guess I think in my mind it was more like an album before band, you know what I mean? Like, I think
at first it was like just about the record. It wasn't really about us playing it live. And we were like, oh, like, let's just do this record. Like, we kind of have a theme, we kind of have a vibe. We're both like feeling the same sort of stuff. And then it was just like, and then just show opportunities.
I mean, in retrospect, I think it was that because we're in the quarantine, so we were at home kind of just tripping out on this music, and I wasn't even imagining a live kind of context for it until just recently, now that people want to come back to normal, and it is happening. But I think for a long time it was just something to get lost in, like trip out, go to the end of ideas. But it was almost like a virtual like in a kind of weird virtual existence, because we didn't know what the hell was happening. So, then all of a sudden, you know, the curtains open up and you're like, well, now you have, I think we can play shows and bring the music in that live context, you know, which we're still figuring out, but it's coming together.
So how long have you guys actually known each other?
Years now.
3 years.
How many years do you think? 3 years?
I think about 3 years. Yeah.
3 years.
You know.
How did you first meet? Just through in Montreal?
I was producing a girl named Alexandria Mayo from Vancouver, and like, cause I'm from Vancouver Island,
right?
And I moved out here just kind of some of my best friends. We all grew up in the same hometown, Half Moon Run, and like they live out here. And like my childhood best friend was playing with Half Moon Run, and I just came out here for a visit, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll stay for a bit. And then I started working at Indica Records, like the first like week I got here, helping them kind of with their studio. And then I had, this artist, Alexandria Mayo, flew out, and I was producing her record for her. And I had seen Black Ligare, which is one of Mishka's side projects, the first night that I moved to Montreal. My buddy's like, dude, we gotta check this band out. Like, two of the guys from Pat Watson's band and the bass player from the Bar Brothers. And he's like, it's so dope. We got to go check it out. And went and checked it out, blew my mind. And I was like, oh my God, these are the people like I want to work with and stuff. And then totally just, you know, some time went by, and it was just like I became good friends with Mishka and Robbie and stuff. And then I brought Mishka into the studio to work, or we hired him to play bass on Alexandria's record, and
and then we hung out afterwards.
And then after we had our one session, it was like, oh, that was pretty dope. Like, that was a good time. And I played him some music of my own, and we kind of just like talked about some stuff, and that was kind of the beginning of the friendship. And I started going to like a lot of band shows that he played in. Just would see him at shows, and that was kind of how we became.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, and for me, it was kind of like the discovery of your talent, you know. That session was, it was fun. It was fun to work with you on somebody else's music. But when I heard what you did, it really, something clicked in my head for sure. And I was like, wow, this guy, just had something different, new, and I think I just made a connection with things that I liked, you know.
Yeah. So obviously, you mentioned that this started to come together at the start of the pandemic, and you know, it's nice that some positive things have come out of this situation, right? And I guess that meant the whole DIY approach to making music was kind of forced upon you anyway. But you seem to have taken the DIY thing all the way through the project. So talk a little bit about that and why you've done it all on your own kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, personally, during the pandemic, you know, there was still, I was still playing. I think people just adapted like crazy, you know, like a lot of venues turned into live stream rooms, you know, where you would do your show. So I did a few of those things. And yeah, personally, like I spend most of my life, composing, performing, but never really recording myself. And this was kind of like, I guess, somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, this is my chance to get that part of being a musician down as well. You know, like I never really learned to DAW because I let somebody else, you know, like, well, in the Patrick Watson band, it's Patrick as the engineer, producer, you know, and that's, you know, going on 20 years of that experience. So like, I just never took the time to just hook up the and for me, it's just like the technical part of getting the sound in. You know, I'm not necessarily passionate about it because I spend more time writing and playing. But but this was my, you know, my opportunity to, like, I would have never, obviously nobody would have ever taken a year off to just hang out and, you know, but I had a lot of time. So I just kind of like got the basics of that and started recording myself, and realized that it's actually, maybe I was a little bit scared of it. I don't know, but I was just like, oh, this is easy, like you just have to get the sound, and then then you can spend as much time working on the actual idea. And so anyways, for me, that was just something that wasn't part of my skill set that it is now. And now I'm excited because whenever I have an idea, I can just sit down and pick and draw a picture, as opposed to, like, when you spend a little bit more time with one idea, you can actually, instead of like trying to describe to somebody or even play it on a guitar, you can actually draw a picture of what you were imagining. And whenever that would be handed over and to Sam, he would add to it, but then bring it back, and it would just blow my mind every time. I would have to readapt to this initial thing, but it would become even bigger and more interesting and profound. And then I guess Sam can answer this, but I think Sam had another plan. Like he wants to make a movie about his life.
A lot of this is just weird timing. I feel like this record too, because I had like at the beginning of the pandemic moved into a different recording studio room, and I started thinking about I'm like, man, I really want to start like a small record label, just where we can kind of use it as a collaboration of like more songwriters that can just kind of like, because when I used to work in LA, like a lot of the hip hop kind of producers would have like writing camp sessions all the time, and it would be like a bunch of people, like a bunch of heavy hitter players, just like all collaborating on a song together. It's like, oh, this is like kind of the idea, like let me bring up these couple example songs, like we kind of want to have a groove like this, and like they would all get together and just be jamming out. And then the producer I worked for, DJ Khalil, he would just like take these jams and would produce like the craziest songs for like Anderson .Paak, Kendrick Lamar, like Jay-Z. And like I got to be in this room and watch all this stuff happen. And I don't necessarily see that happening up here as much, like just songwriting like sessions where it's like a bunch of friends and they're kind of more just writing in a room together for the sake of just like putting a song together, rather than it being like for a specific artist or anything. And that kind of got like my head spinning. And at the same time as that, I was writing music for myself because I wrote this script for a film about just some stuff that happened to me as a teenager. And it's kind of this art film based on this like kind of some traumatic stuff that happened to me when I was a teenager. And then that was kind of when me and Mishka started writing stuff that wasn't for other people.
I just wanted to add to this traumatic event that that's something you told me about when we first met. I think even that night with Alexandria, when we were just listening to your own music and we were just getting to know each other. But I've since formed a theory on what happened to you after that event. Not to get into the whole story, but Sam was in a big car accident when he was very young, when he was 17, I think. Yeah. And then ended up in a coma, basically, from what I understand. The chances of you coming back to sort of like yourself were like zero. Anyway, so he was in this coma for 2 months, and not I obviously didn't know you before, but I feel like there's something in your production talent that I feel like is I don't know how to put it, but I feel like that had maybe something to do with it, and you just have a very profound I feel like when you hear music, it's and obviously everybody hears it in their own way, but I feel like there's a lot of depth. You make a big connection. You kind of do it full-heartedly, you know, which doesn't always happen, you know, but also with the skills of making crazy beats, you know. Yeah, so it's a nice balance of, it's a nice balance.
Maybe you just kind of tapped into something otherworldly.
Yeah, I don't no, I woke up completely different from that whole experience, and it took me a few years to realize actually how different I was from before. And then it like, anyways though, so like, yeah, so this, like, we started writing music for this like story, and then I was like, I'm gonna buy a camera because I have to shoot this film. I'm gonna buy a camera. And then eventually, after talking about it for years, like, I finally bought this camera like about a week or two before we shot the first music video, which was Vaudevillain, which is the song you originally said has the odd, enjoyable but odd element. And so that was the first thing that we got the camera probably 5 days before the dancer came in, and we started shooting that. And that was basically, the music videos so far are just like me learning video editing and just us coming up with our own low budget ideas that we can like put together. And all the videos so far we've shot in one day, and we've done it all just ourselves.
It's really interesting that you guys have been, you know, you've spent years and years working with other artists and basically lending your talent to other people. And now you've just seemed to have claimed it all, and you're just like, you know, you're not letting anybody else in at the moment almost. And you've just taken everything that you've learned on your journey through life, including some horrific experiences, and kind of focusing it all in on this new project. So it must feel very personal and very timely as well.
It's definitely therapeutic, emotional, like fulfilling, amazing. There's a whole bunch of like words for me that like I feel, and like this, you know, and this is totally a dream of mine. And like the reason I went to production school is like I used to be just like a drummer and like playing lots of metal and punk bands and like that, but that my entire life has just been, I keep just like, it's music, oh, more music, even though I've never been like the most amazing musician, but it's like I've cared, like performance wise, but I've just like cared about music so much like in my life. It's so nice to, Mishka's the first person that I've had a band or a music project with where I'm really like, oh, like we're actually on the same page artistically, even though like there's some disagreements obviously sometimes, but like the overall picture, it's like, oh, like it wouldn't come together so fast and stuff if we weren't like on the same page. And it wouldn't,
I mean, it feels nice. It does feel like, you know, 2 people talking versus 3 people talking is I feel like a whole different conversation. And I think it's really nice with, like you said, with the skill set for sure. Like, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm in a fun place creatively, in the sense that I can think of something and I can actually come closer to that by just, I can play a little bit of drums, play a little keyboards, and also just, you know, bass, guitar, all of that stuff, but in a way where I can put it all together and make it make sense. And just I can, if I have an idea, I have less questions than I used to. You know, I can kind of make that emotion or sound or feeling pop. And Sam, like the funny thing is, why are we doing everything ourselves? And like when you got the camera and he was telling me about he wants to make a movie and all this, I was like, I'm not necessarily, I'm not skeptical, but I find it amazing that, you know, the day after he started editing our first video, he was kind of laughing to himself. He said like, oh, you know, like I just applied what I know on the DAW, like the music recording software, and just kind of using the same approach and I'm enjoying it. Like, anyways, and when you sent me the first edit, I literally had zero issues with it. Like, it was great. There was like one thing that I thought could have been cool, but I just think that same thing you're able to do with music, with producing music, you can do, you obviously have with video as well. So I just, and kind of the organized business side of it as well. So I feel like we kind of, it's not easy, it's a lot of work, but I think that the two of us can do a lot on our own and have been, so why, or at least for now, like why have a bigger team, if we can actually manage this.
So the album comes out on the 27th. At what point during this project did you feel like that was something that you wanted to do rather than just releasing individual tracks?
I think it was just kind of like we had nothing, and then it was like, oh, we kind of have 5 tracks all of a sudden. And then it was like, and then there was a couple ideas that I had from like my movie that Mishka was working on with me, and then it was like, oh, maybe these are FHANG tracks. So King Blame, which is kind of our like more punk rock dark wave tune on the album, like that was just something I was making. And it's actually funny because I'm not a singer either, and it's like I don't normally, or I mean, I guess neither of us normally are singers, and we're just like, I'm like, dude, check it out, like I sang on this. And then I sent him it, I'm like, I'm playing guitar and I sang on it, like it's really weird. Like, and then he's like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then I was just like, oh, maybe I'll do like a punk like little EP or something. And then Mishka's like, oh, but what about if it was like after one of these big like electronic kind of ballads that we have, or like one of these more like just after this, like really, like if this is putting the right pacing on an album, like it'll be such a twist, and it'll be like,
I remember having that moment of like that thing that musicians often do is try to, that first moment when you jam with somebody, you're like, okay, we're gonna be like punk, or we're gonna be this, and then all of a sudden you're kind of putting this limit on yourself. I was just very aware at that moment. I thought it was exciting to, if we are already communicating on that level and have all these ideas, and that's what we are already, so that this band can go to all those places, and it will be even more freeing and more exciting. And I love a good twist in anything, movies, whatever, books. Like, it's so trippy, you all of a sudden you destabilize the person and they can go somewhere else. I feel like it's so that was an actual moment when I heard that music. I was like, what, you're gonna make this this like punk band now? Like, you're gonna try to write a bunch of this kind of song or this kind of music and just make, I just thought it would be so much more exciting because it was all happening at the same time anyways, so it was infused with kind of the same emotional stuff,
Do you ever worry that people are going to judge you from one song and not explore the others, which they might like and maybe miss because they didn't like the first thing they heard?
I wonder. I mean, like, I guess the album concept is not a popular now anyways, people just listen to whatever Spotify plays first. But yeah. I think we put together these songs with a playthrough kind of listen in mind,
This is definitely like throw the vinyl on, like, which is, I feel like most artists, or I mean a lot of artists are probably thinking that when they're making something. But it's I also feel like our pacing and the idea was like, we were kind of like, oh, I want this to feel like a cool playlist that someone can put on at a party and like not need to worry about it, and it just kind of being like a vibe all the way through. And as to what you said, like about someone missing it, it's like, it's almost so eclectic though, like we might also grab people that we wouldn't normally
Yeah, for sure.
like, get with just like something like the Toronto and Aomari featured track, Many Moons, like with the more hip hop kind of thing, or going to a song like My Crown or Fleur Du Mal. Like it's all, I think we're definitely a band where it's like people are going to be into it or they're probably not going to be into it. Like I think it'll be pretty like cut and dry as far as people that are into it or not.
And after all these artists that you've worked with in the past, and there's some, you know, there's some very well-known artists, so they're going to be paying attention to what you're doing with this project now, as well as a lot of other people. Do you feel nervous about the fact that now you're going, okay, after all that stuff that we've done, this is what we're doing together, and you're putting it out into the world, and there's that moment of like, what
for me, yeah, I think so. I don't know about Mishka, but for me, for sure, that's like, I feel like there's a lot of producers out there too that like, yeah, it's like, oh, like, yeah, now presenting like something without the lens of like the artist that you're working with. Like, it's like, oh, here's actually me, which is like definitely a vulnerable position. And
I guess absolutely. But you just have to kind of trust yourself, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, but this has been definitely just therapeutic too. So I feel like I'm already getting the benefits of going to the bottom of this collaboration, you know, like really it's a lot of it. There was a back and forth kind of thing where you spend as much time as you needed with an idea. Like I would bring my ideas as far as I could, where I could already enjoy them, and then Sam definitely spent so much time and gave it so obviously so much love. Just to answer your question, I feel like, yeah, I think like maybe feeling a little bit vulnerable, but I do believe in it completely, you know.
Yeah. So if you meet somebody and you talk to them about FHANG or FHANG or however we're going to end up saying it, and they say, "Oh, play me a song." What do you pick? Because it's so they're all kind of different.
I'd probably play the first one if they had the first tune on the record, because we've already kind of had this conversation of, well, you know, when you start to pace the music, that's kind of a big part of you're bringing people into your world, and how do you get them to stick around, I guess. So the first track on the record is this long instrumental piece that I think if you get past that, then you're either really curious about what's going to happen next, or enough to play the next tune, you know.
Yeah, totally. I'm and it's also funny just listening to people's feedback, because like everyone has a different like favorite, and there will be some people's reactions to certain songs that I'm like, oh, weird, didn't think you were gonna pick that one, like didn't expect that.
Like I want to see what you guys do in a live scenario now, when you kind of touched on the fact that you're planning to do that fairly soon. Can you tell us anything about what you got planned on that side?
I mean, we played a show, our first show a few weeks ago, and actually we were preparing for our release show, so we had already started to do the transition from like the long distance recording, because everything was done, you know, from our homes, to like, what does this actually look like live, or how do we do this? And I think once again, it was clear to both of us, like, let's not try to reproduce the record. Like let's make it so that we could do it just the two of us, but draw the full picture, you know. So I mean, what it looks like is there's a drum kit and then there's two keyboard stands facing each other. One on one side, I got like the keys. I have some bass pedal triggers so I can play bass notes with my foot. And I'm rocking a double neck bass and guitar instrument, which I know it's a tough one to pull off, but I actually need it for this.
Pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
It's ridiculous looking.
And then
Sam was on the other side with all his modular setup, and he plays drums and sings, and so I think the show went pretty well.
Yeah, people liked it, and there's a certain vibe with the space, like I feel like we're filling up a lot of sonic space, but there's also like space and moments for it to breathe, and it like drops down to just one of us like doing something, and it like, I feel like the live performance for me is just as emotional as the record, which is nice. Like I get a good feeling while we're playing it, and there's something about me and Mishka just trying to do it that like feels good. It's like, here's these two people like really like working at like making this full experience with just like the two of them, with all their limbs, like, because there's a lot of stuff where I'm playing like chord progressions on SpitX while I'm drumming and singing, and then Mishka's playing sub bass with his feet and a guitar part, and then to a bass part, and then does like synth parts, and it's like,
if you could pick your dream artist to go on tour with as the opening act, who would you choose?
We probably have so many different ones. I wonder.
Yeah.
I have no idea who you would want to open up for. Could we open up for like Vangelis? Just because I'm a big fan. I would love to meet him. But I feel like on my end, a lot of the influence, there's definitely a lot of Vangelis influence in the music. So that's why I say that. And I wonder if his listeners, the people who've enjoyed like, the Blade Runner soundtrack or something, if they would see the connection. Bands, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it could work really well with some heavier acts,
I would love to perform with Arca, the producer Arca.
Dope. Yeah.
That is like definitely,
that's true.
For me, like, I'm so influenced by their music. And I also think I don't know if I'm saying this right or not, but Yves Tumor or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yves Tumor, yeah.
Yves Tumor, yeah, I think that would be a great, but that's me thinking of like, if we were like with a modern artist that like would be a cool tour for like us to like kind of add to the tour. I think those are two acts.
I mean, Jane's Addiction could work. I'd love to win. I'd love to win over like a Converge crowd, but I think we need to be like in a net, protected.
Wow. I actually have a Converge sticker on the back of my laptop that I'm talking to you on.
Nice, dope. Yeah, I mean, it's just so, like, and seeing them live. I remember seeing them live somewhere on tour, like some festival in Europe, and I was out there with Patrick, and I remember like trying to. I think I brought Robbie. Actually, I was like, we got to see this band. You're gonna freak out, just because it's so different from what we do and what we usually end up seeing. I was like, you got to, like, I've only heard insane things about these guys, and I just remember like having such an emotional experience watching this hardcore band perform. I think I found it more touching than a lot of music that's supposed to do that. That's technically meant to make you feel those things, Yeah. Wow. And it was just 25 minutes of them giving it all. Like, we had probably just played a show, and I probably didn't give, as much of myself to what I had. So I grew up listening to a lot of heavy music as well. I absolutely love it. And I think that there's this, and I think that's part of FHANG as well, that we have this some of the songs, if they weren't electronically, if we didn't take the electronic approach, they would actually just be like hardcore tunes, and one of them actually, that's what we decided to do live, because otherwise we'd be just playing back, doing playback. We're like, why don't we try to do this one the way it actually felt when I was, like what the emotions actually translate or trying to say. And it's basically like a hardcore tune, just a very skeletal, big drum beat and chugging bass line. And then Sam is yelling his head up, in an improvised, just an improvised rant,
Yeah.
So there's that, there's that.
And then once the album's out, what's going to be next?
Hopefully play some shows and keep playing shows, start working on some more music to hopefully put out for, I guess, next spring or something, like next summer. Just keep the train rolling. I think we want to do some kind of a live recording of one of our sets, just to like give the taste to everyone of just like have something to be like, oh, by the way, like this is the record, and like here's the record as the live band, because there is a bit of a difference, and we have a couple cool ideas for where we want to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of backwards in the sense that we never jammed. We kind of made the record, and then now we're trying to figure out how to play it. I remember the first few jams were kind of really hard, and then now it's becoming fun. So I just feel like it's about exploring that whole. I feel like that's gonna yet again, change what's gonna happen next.
September 1st, I'll also say September 1st is our album launch show at Ursa on Park Avenue. It's going to be really small. It's going to be very small, and hopefully we see some people there that are excited about the music.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You just want to be excited about music in general rather than focusing in on genres, right? I
just feel like so many, or at least the people I'm around, obviously it's like not the norm of the people I'm surrounded by, but I feel like people are just so exposed to so many types of music now that it's like you have a bit more freedom to be a bit less genre specific. There's tons of artists that I love that I'm like, oh, they're definitely not like tying themselves down to a genre. And like, because there's so many parts of like even myself, that I'm just like getting to know all the time, that I'm like,
yeah, it's becoming more normal, which is really nice. The people expecting the unexpected is finally not a turnoff. I just think there's lots of artists now that are just exploring wherever it is that it wants to go. It's a way more honest kind of portrayal of somebody's world. Nobody, I don't think anybody really lives in like the really just one color.
So on that theme, give me an album that like a new album or newish album that you've heard recently from another artist that maybe people would have missed that you think we need to check out.
But yeah, albums, that's a good one, because everything's so fast. Even if you're really into a tune, I feel like you still rarely take the time to check out the rest of the songs, and everything's on, or at least, everything's on playlists. You're just kind of like bouncing around.
I've been listening to a lot of Boy Harsher, and also Trust, R/ST. I don't know like what the new release is, but that's just what I've been listening to, and it's kind of like more like gothic.
Did anybody miss the new Billie Eilish? I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone missed that.
No.
I don't think anyone missed that one.
I mean, on a personal discovery, I just really got into Alice Coltrane it's not new, obviously, but it's new to me. And I think that she was like, yeah, on another level. It's so beautiful.
And what about Montreal artists? Are there anybody that from Montreal that you think needs a bit more attention?
Everett Bird.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
He's like a good friend of mine, and literally blows my mind, and I think is one of the most like overlooked Canadian producer artists. And he's from Montreal, originally from Vancouver. We met at like a recording boot camp when we were like, I was an assistant and he was like the young band there, and we became friends. And then he moved out here, and then we kind of reconnected when I moved out here, and we're actually working on a couple tunes together, and I'm just very inspired by his music.
I like Paul Jacobs a lot. I think people are onto him, but he's great. Seen him a couple times live, and it was the real deal, you know.
I don't want to keep you too long. We've been chatting for a while, but it's been really nice talking to you guys, and good luck with the album and everything. Hopefully I will get to catch you live in Montreal soon.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our music and talk to us about it, because I think this is the beginning of kind of what we manifested, because it's just like, it's nice to kind of hear what you think about the record, and we're happy to just kind of hear that it's connecting with some people.
Yeah, I'm excited for people to hear it.
Nice.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
All right, you guys have nice days.
Yeah,
thanks a lot.